Competition is kart's game. 4 races, 4 different winners. Over half the teams have led in those 4 races. Today we're back at Nazareth Speedway, the Andretti hometown, to run the race that was snowed out back on the 9th of April. Kart Nazareth 225. I'm Paul Page with Parker Johnstone, Gary Gerald, and Jan Vikas are with us, and we're ready to go racing. Juan Montoya has the pole position here. This is the track where he scored his first oval win. Further down in the field, Paul Tracy, who has twice won here, sits back in row 2. A little further down in the 5th row is Adrian Fernandez, who won at Rio. Jimmy Vasser is in row 6, a former winner here. Twice winning here is Michael Andretti. He also won this year, as did Max Pappas. And as we show you the rest of the field, we tell you that Takuya Kurosawa had problems this morning during the warm-up, and those problems eliminated him from the race. He was coming off at turn 4 when he caught the wall. It wasn't a serious crash, but it knocked him out for a few seconds, and the rules say you're knocked out. You can't go racing on that day. So he becomes a spectator. The race here today over this track that's a little under 1 mile around, 225 laps. And they will stop on the 74th to the 81st, but Parker Johnstone, they could stop a lot earlier than that.
They sure could. If you pit under the green here, you'll lose at least 2 laps. So if we see a yellow flag anytime after lap 30, expect them to come in for that first round of pit stops.
There is the possibility of rain. It's a threat. It's not a great threat, but it is certainly on everyone's mind. Pace car already rolls off of the field, and they are streaming toward what should be a green flag. 225 laps ahead. Montoya jumps in the lead, but there's trouble back in the field.
Dario Franchitti, looks like Cristiano D'Amato also got caught up.
There's D'Amato's view as the green flag came out. This was further back in the field, and both of them were spinning.
Did you hit anything, or you just get off in the grass?
Just got off in the grass. Ask them to push me quick.
Okay, there's nobody out there. There's nobody getting out there to us, buddy.
The first of the safety trucks are now beginning to arrive on the scene. Obviously, both the drivers are okay. Parker, here's what happened.
Coming off the last corner, you can see in the back Franchitti, who had started back in 14th. We can't tell if he got tapped. Cristiano D'Amato, trying to avoid contact, goes down for the grass. And obviously Franchitti made light contact with the Armco just behind him there.
And the impact of the barrier is enough to bend the rear wing on Franchitti's car, something that they should be able to change quite readily. And in fact, most of the teams keep in the pits for just such an occasion. So on the start, we go yellow. We'll be back. Today's coverage of the Kart Nazareth 225 is being brought to you by FedEx, proud sponsor of the FedEx Championship Series, and by Brewery Fresh Budweiser, official beer of Kart. Hey, race fans, this Bud's for you. Well, we roared off to a start, and then right away the yellow came out. That's Dario Franchitti. He is out of his car, talking it over with his team. Apparently the damage is too serious to repair. Here is the view from Cristiano D'Amato's car of this start.
Cristiano starting back in 19th place. It looks like Dario just smoked the tires. You can see he made contact with his teammate. It looked like Aurelio Servia got down in the grass. Ironic that it should be contact with Servia, who's had the exact same problems that Franchitti had the last 2 races.
Another view here. It looks like he just lit the tires and started spinning.
Yep.
Unfortunately, even though the contact with the wall is very light, it's apparently enough to take the car out of the race. This is how Mark Blundell saw it.
Starts to go around the high side of Servia here. You can see him give a little wiggle, which must have been... Yeah, there you go, the smoke from Franchitti. And he must have bent the rear suspension, Paul, when he tapped the inside barrier there, and that's probably what put him out, unless they damaged the back of the gearbox with that.
Remember, Mark had a similar situation at Rio because of a spinning Tagliani in front of him. So, Jan Vikas, what's the story on Franchitti? He's out of the car, obviously.
Yes, and let's find out. Dario, a very short day for you. Was it just cold tires, or were you tapped from behind?
No, it was cold tires. There was no contact. I know initially when we put on the power, everybody was nervous. I wasn't. I got up to a bit more speed. I thought, okay, things have settled down. Okay, on the power a bit harder, and it just started to swap ends on me. I was running the thing backwards. I managed to spin it, so it was going backwards. I tried to flick it round, but didn't quite get it and hit the so very disappointed.
Okay, we're going green. Sorry you're not part of it. Thanks, Dario.
With Franchitti out, the green flag flies, and we begin to race once again. Montoya leads it, chased by Fittipaldi. Everybody smoothly clear through the start-finish line. Paul Tracy is in third place. That's Helio Castroneves back and forth, followed by Kenny Brack and Gilles de Ferran. Juan Montoya, who has a rather complex weekend ahead of him, starts on the front row for the Indianapolis 500 tomorrow. They have 2 different chartered aircraft to get the team back and forth between here in Nazareth and Indianapolis. Christian Fittipaldi, 1 win to his credit last year at Elkhart Lake, Road America.
And on that lap, Montoya and Fittipaldi pulled out another half a second. They're now 2.6 seconds in front of Paul Tracy. We've seen this so often the last few races this year. The Lola of Montoya streaking out into the lead, this time pulling Christian Fittipaldi with him also in a Lola. Remember, Lola had its first win at Motegi the last race, the first time since Michael Andretti back in Vancouver, BC in 1996. So obviously the car working very well on the short ovals.
Helio Castroneves closing on Paul Tracy. Tracy has had a terrific year, which has led to his current lead in the points fight. A 4th, a 1st, a 3rd, and a 6th thus far in the 4 races this year. A little further back is Kenny Brack and then Gilles de Ferran. There they are with Roberto Moreno, who had trouble when they started the engines. It took a while for his to get started. The field left the pit area, and then finally Roberto Moreno joined them and joined the field in his qualified position. That's Tony Kanaan right behind Roberto Moreno. Normally, we'd like to give you the running order in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. We're not able to do that right now. There are some issues with a changeover in the scoring system, and so we're still trying to chase that a little ourselves, and we'll try to keep you as up-to-date as best we can. Luis Garcia Jr., that everybody is moving around. He wisely takes it down offline, lets the field come past, but it also tightens up that battle. de Ferran, Moreno, Kanaan. It's a battle for 7th place. Montoya continues to lead over Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi has dropped almost a second and a half back from the leader, Montoya. Tracy's back another 2 seconds, so that's why this is the battle on the course right now.
Speaking of Montoya, it shows you how quickly things happen here at Nazareth. They've already caught the back markers, and he's having now to start working his way through the back end of the field. Christian Fittipaldi, because of this now, is making up a lot of time on the interval that Montoya had pulled out.
We take it back to the front of the field. That is Montoya, with Cristiano D'Amata just ahead of him. Had that incident on the start. Jan Beekes, story on tires?
Yes, Paul. A lot of people are talking, and certainly we heard from Dario Franchitti what happens when the tires are cold. A lot of the radio communications have been at the moment that the tires are not up yet. What that means is that they have telemetry that tells you the tire pressures, and not yet do these cars have the tire pressure that they really want to have when they get settled into a pace. So hopefully when they do, these guys can get more racing.
Well, they're now 18 laps, so some of those run under yellow, but still a considerable distance under green, and the tires aren't up yet.
Well, because you think of tire temperatures, but it's really the pressures that are important, because the more air that the tires build, the greater the spring rate in the tires, and more importantly, it gets the ride height to where it needs to be. So these cars, which make so much of their downforce from the bottom of the car, can start working at their most efficient point.
Well, you saw an example of that in the qualifying at Rio, where for Paul Tracy, they filled the tires in the morning at ambient temperature, and it changed drastically during the day without them rechecking the tires. Hence, he had problems during the qualifying. It's so critical now. Montoya continues to thread his way through this field. Going to look back now through the field to 6th place at Kenny Breck. 1 year ago this weekend, he was winning the Indianapolis 500. Today, he's a rookie looking for his first win in kart. Fascinating definition of rookie, isn't it?
Well, I think we had that same problem to a greater degree when Nigel Mansell came over, having won the F1 championship and then was a rookie in the kart series.
In reality, you have it all up and down the order. When they come to kart, they probably won a series somewhere else. Jan Vikas.
Just checked in with the Ray Hall crew to find out what the status of Kenny Breck is. So far, the car is to his liking, just has a little bit too much push.
That was a common complaint of all the cars after the morning warm-up was understeer. It's cool, it's overcast. The cars will have the understeer unless it starts to brighten up and warm up. They will go neutral to loose at that point. But I imagine on the first round of pit stops, we'll see a lot of front wing going into these cars.
3rd place, Paul Tracy, now beginning to engage some of the traffic as well. Again, that's Cristiano D'Amata just ahead of him. D'Amata's last place on the track right now. And behind Paul Tracy, one of the 2 Penske cars, that's Elio Castroneves, who has now announced that they have taken the hyphen out of his name. It used to be Castro-Neves.
We just now refer to him as the driver formerly hyphenated as Castroneves.
Well, apparently someone somewhere just referred to him as Neves, and that was the motivation, though I don't know that to be sure. Nevertheless, it is all one word now, Elio Castroneves. Montoya leads it, followed by Fittipaldi, Tracy, then Elio Castroneves. You watch him there. Kenny Breck is right behind him. Gil DeFerrin, Moreno, Canan, and Adrian Fernandez. 25 laps are complete already. We've had 1 caution. That was the spin on the start of the race. Join ESPN in prime time as the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series heads to the Pacific Northwest for some of their exciting short track action. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of Go Network, go.com. Back at Nazareth with the kart Nazareth 225, you ride with Jimmy Vasser. His teammate Juan Montoya is currently the leader. He has been all the way, and nothing has changed since we left him.
The interval between Montoya and the rest of the field just changing depending on the type of traffic that he's running into. The problem is trying to pass here. With the Hanford device that they're running this year, creates more downforce than last year with this new wing package. Remember last year they ran the super speedway wings, but it also creates more turbulence. The guys can catch up to a car in front of them, but it's difficult to get up and next to them in order to pass them.
This is the fight for 2nd place. Christian Fittipaldi, the black car, yellow helmet. Right behind him is Paul Tracy. Tracy has been able to move up on Fittipaldi in the last few laps. Jan?
Check with the Newman Haas team to find out if everything's okay with Christian. They say we have a problem with the radio. Christian can hear us, but we cannot hear him. So if he needs any changes in the handling, right now, we won't know what that is.
But Newman Haas Racing, like most of the teams, do have a set of hand signals that they can at least use. It's not nearly as efficient as a radio would be, but he's not totally affluent.
Well, and I think for some of the teams, they'd just soon be able to talk to the driver, but not be able to have the driver talk back to them.
Also, I don't know what it looks like on the 2,000 square inch televisions at home, but at one shot every now and then through the fence where it flickers white, 2 or 3 times Parker and I have both thought, whoa, is that an engine going or something else happening? No, just one of the optical illusions of the fencing here at Nazareth.
You can see them working by Norberto Fontana there as they're coming through, and also Cristiano D'Amata.
Dropping back to Kenny Breck now, with Gil DeFerrin working on him, and Moreno still staying in there. That battle that we left you with a few moments ago, and it's tightened up once again as they come through traffic.
It's Tarso Marquez directly in front of him in the Swift. So far they've struggled to get speed out of that chassis. Tarso didn't come here for the original race weekend, but because he had extensively tested here, they allowed him back. Checked his speed during the morning warm-up.
DeFerrin on the move. DeFerrin gets him. So DeFerrin comes by. That'll put DeFerrin into 5th place. Now can Moreno work on Kenny Breck? Oh, DeFerrin's taken off now.
He is, and what he's doing quite effectively is trying to use the traffic in front of him as a pick. And what he did is he caught Kenny out. Kenny had gotten held up by Tarso. Joe got a much better run coming out of turn 2 and was able to outbrake him going down into the 3rd corner. And now DeFerrin wants to maintain his momentum, get by Tarso as quickly as he can, so he doesn't have the same thing happen back to him and he slides by.
So he's now got another blocker back to separate himself from Kenny Brack. DeFerrin to 5th. Brack, then Roberto Moreno. But Tarso Marquez in that blue and yellow car sits in between DeFerrin and the other two. Gary Gerald.
Quick update regarding the leader, Juan Montoya. Paul, he's about to encounter a tremendous group of traffic, and Chip Ganassi has been the most animated along this end of the pits thus far, because earlier on, as he encountered those at the back of the field, he was having a hard time getting by, and Chip was lobbying officials to contact other teams to get their drivers out of the way. Well, Juan, we know that he sometimes has a tendency to be a bit impatient. Now coming up where he's got a long string of traffic in front of him, we'll keep an eye on this team and see whether or not they can keep that patient factor, because the drivers almost all agree being patient is maybe the most difficult thing you do on this very busy near 1 mile oval. You're always turning, you're always in traffic.
Tracking the leader from the Honda Helicam, looking down on Nazareth Speedway, the world's most polite man, Gary Gerald, but Jan is occasionally impatient. Well said, Gary.
Well, just once in a while.
And as he comes up through the field, obviously it's going to be harder and harder to go by. He goes by Mark Blundell here, but the next person in his sights is Michael Andretti. And I guarantee you, Michael's just not going to pull over and let him by. We're going to see how this battle shapes up here.
Let's see. Michael, born here, lives a few miles from here, has twice won here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to let him by.
Yeah, and this is a little surprising. Michael running back in 16th place. They had done some testing at Milwaukee, thought they had gotten their short oval problems figured out. Obviously, his teammate had done quite well during qualifying here 7 weeks ago. Michael said that Christian's setup wasn't suitable for his driving style, but thought they had a better handle on it. Obviously, they haven't.
Michael Andretti, the Kmart, Texaco, Havel, and Lola, set up behind Oriol Servia with the leader right behind him. Whoa, Montoya really skates the car there. Jan Bikas.
Yes, and Michael Andretti was hoping that this delay of 7 weeks would help him, like the delay helped him in Japan. That rain out by 1 day helped his crew fix his car so he could go to the primary where he was more comfortable. He was hoping with a 7-week delay they'd find the handling on this Lola and he'd be faster. But right now, as you can see, he's fighting to stay on the lead lap.
Michael Andretti does have the leader of the race. Juan Montoya just behind him. Another 2 seconds back is Christian Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy. But this is the key position on the course. 47 laps are now complete in the running of the Kart Nazareth 225. We'll be back. Back with the Kart FedEx Championship Series. Paul Page, Parker Johnstone, Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Nothing's changed since we left you. A very frustrated now Juan Montoya continues to work at the back of the car of Michael Andretti. Now, Michael is 16th, and apparently Montoya's team has been lobbying very hard for those cars ahead of him to move over and let him pass. But everybody ahead of him, one, doesn't want to go a lap down, and two, they're all running for position.
Yeah, I mean, you can't expect Michael, Oriol, Max Pappas, Tagliani, Gugelman, and the rest of the guys just to move over because Montoya's behind him. And as you said, not only are they fighting for position, but they're going to do everything possible to stay on this lead lap, because if a yellow were to come out, they'd make up the track position. They don't want to go a lap down, otherwise their race is over. So, I mean, Montoya's really got his work cut out, and obviously Christian Fittipaldi is now closing the gap. There he is, right behind the car there of Mark Blundell. And as a driver, you can really feel the pressure when you've gotten held up like this. Earlier, Montoya was turning laps by himself a 1.5 seconds quicker than what he's doing now behind Michael Andretti.
And Christian Fittipaldi has Paul Tracy, the current points leader, right behind him. And Tracy, you know, is thinking, boy, if I can use Blundell right, I'm past him and into second. Gary Gerald.
Well, you touched on the fact that Juan Montoya, as the defending champion, has had so much frustration this year, Paul, that Chip Ganassi is a master on the radio. In between lobbying the kart officials, he's telling Juan to just stay calm. We're working on it. He's trying to do everything he can to keep his young driver as patient and as possible.
You got a glimpse of him there. That's the psychiatrist of the pit area, Dr. Ganassi.
And kart does monitor the driver communications, and some of the more savvy drivers, if they get within 10 car lengths behind someone, they start screaming and yelling that they're being held up. So Kirk Russell, the chief steward's aware of that. You can be sure that Montoya right now is being fairly verbal on the radio.
And again, we apologize for not having our usual pylon up in the upper left-hand side of the screen. The interface between kart scoring and our system has been changed this weekend. And in that change, as everybody that has a home computer knows, Even though you log on it and say, okay, it's going to work fine, it doesn't always go that way. It's not going that way right now. We're working on it. Looking back here, Penske cars running together. Helio Castroneves sits in fourth. DeFerrin now up in fifth after getting around Kenny Brack. You saw that pass. They're only sitting about a second and a half back from the Fittipaldi-Tracy battle.
And these two Renard chassis have been heavily modified by Penske. Upon close examination, you can see the rear cowlings, the ducting, the side pod shapes are quite different than any other Renard in the field.
And while we watch Helio and Gil DeFerrin, Montoya is still unable to get around Michael Andretti. Not that Michael's doing anything, he's just running fast. On the other hand, Montoya is showing some patience.
And unless Michael makes a major mistake and Juan can get a good run at him, as I said a little bit earlier, passing here is difficult. They've gone from 3,000 pounds of downforce last year to 3,500 pounds this year, but the drag has gone up from 1,100 to 1,400 pounds. Creates a huge wind shadow of turbulence behind the cars. Even if the driver's able to get up next to the car, they don't have quite as much grip as they had, say, a few years back, where they're up to over 4,000 pounds to use that outer line going through turn 2 and try to get a run going down turn 3.
Now, as we look at Montoya, you can look one car back, Mark Blundell, and then Christian Fittipaldi with Paul Tracy working on him. Gary?
Quick update regarding Helio Castroneves, currently running in fourth place. One of his concerns coming into this event today was the fact that at Twin Ring Motegi, they had a substantial vibration that they picked up on long extended runs. Well, we're now on a long run as we approach our first scheduled pit stop. They were getting vibration so bad 2 weeks ago in Japan that he said he actually couldn't see clearly. Everything was blurred. That's why he lost a couple of laps. They are concerned about that coming in today. They've made tweaks on the balance of the setup of the car. They think it had been addressed. We just checked with the crew. They indicated that they're just riding right now. So apparently he's found a comfort zone. But they were getting unusual tire wear up front as a result of that vibration. Here's hoping he doesn't have it again today on the smaller track.
Well, we're over a quarter way into the race, just completed the 66th lap of 225. When we started the day, there was a threat of rain. In fact, when the teams arrived at the track early this morning for the morning warm-up session, as we take you back to that battle for second place between Christian Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy, it was about 57 degrees, but then the temperature began to drop, and that made everybody really worry about the rain. The radar has it a little to the south of this area, and maybe it's not going to pass through, but it's still on everyone's mind. Well, Montoya followed by Fittipaldi and Tracy. There are your leaders. It's Toyota, Ford, and then Honda. We'll be back. Back at Nazareth, that's Max Pappas, and it just happened. We've just gone yellow. The car, a quick little loop, we think, though no one clearly saw it at first. Obviously, he's been against something. He is out of the car, and we'll try to get you updated on that. The only change that we've had since we left you involved the Penske cars, and it was a nice little battle. Gil DeFerrin chasing his teammate Helio Castroneves.
Gets a good run coming out of the third corners and is able to get past him there. Nice bit of driving.
And then immediately after that, Max Pappas, who was the winner at the race at Miami, got into trouble, and we'll try to get a full report of what happened there. But nevertheless, it brings out our second caution of the day, and it comes on the 74th lap, very close to potential spots. Now, don't forget, this is one of the biggest racing weekends in the United States, if not the world. And RPM tonight will get you up to date on everything going on, especially keeping a close eye on Juan Montoya as perhaps he scores Toyota's first win here and then maybe goes and wins the Indy 500 tomorrow. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of Go Network, go.com. And what happened to Max Pappas? Right now he walks, and he walks because of this. Well, we're catching it pretty late there. He got up where you have no business being.
Being in the middle, yeah, it's just coming around the middle of turn 2. Looks like he lost on the entry. The car slid wide, made contact with the outside fence, came back across, and got the barrier on the inside.
You know, I even wonder if he got the outside. I mean, it looked like he was close. Certainly the contact with the inside is what got one of the nose wings, but nevertheless, Max Pappas's day is over. It's Montoya, Fittipaldi, Tracy, DeFerrin, Castro Neves. Those are the top 5. The only change being within the Penske team, but now the crews are laid out 76 laps into the run. And it looks like a good portion of the field intends to stop as soon as they open the pits. And they begin to roll off. Christian Fittipaldi will get to his pit before Montoya gets to his. Let's go to Jan Beekes.
And we talked about Christian Fittipaldi not having that radio communication. They said wave if you do not want any changes. He has waved to the crew, so therefore Christian, who will be here in a matter of moments, they will not change the setup of the car. He stops it right where he needs to. We haven't seen much passing on the racetrack. It's all going to come down to how fast these pit stops happen, Gary.
Juan Montoya getting service. There is a wing change on both sides of the front wing. Ribs go up very tight. Short pit boxes close. Paul Tracy alongside. Tracy beats Montoya out of the pits.
Exactly as you called it, Gary Gerald. Paul Tracy, that crew always done a great job for Paul Tracy. In fact, they're now second in the overall contest for pit crews throughout the year. Roberto Moreno is leading that right now, but Tracy's crew got a position for him in the pits, got him past the leader of the race off the track, Juan Montoya. So the first round of pit stops are now complete on the 76th lap. The cart, Nazareth 225. We'll be back. But they're going to be doing the dance of celebration down at Team Green because the current standings now show Paul Tracy ahead of Juan Montoya. That's the way it is, and it's because Paul Tracy was able to pass in the pits. The team got him out a lot faster than everybody else. So Paul Tracy is now the leader of this race. We are still under the caution for Max Pappas's spin. And it'll be Tracy, Montoya, Fittipaldi, DeFerrin, and Kenny Breck, the top 5 as we come back. Gary Gerald.
Well, here's very disappointing news for Helio Castro Neves. He'd been running in the top 5, but as he exited the pits, he barely clipped the air hose of his teammate in front of him.
Excuse me, Gary, but Luis Garcia Jr. with no problem and running slow just suddenly lost the back end. That tells you something about tire temperatures.
Well, as they come by our position, Paul, we can hear everyone smoking the rear tires, trying to get heat into them. And as he came off the last corner there, he just got into the throttle too hard, and around he went.
Stay with us, Gary Gerald. We're just going to look at the replay one more time because Garcia, I mean, they can't have been doing 50 miles an hour. Look up at the top of the screen, and there it is. Probably just enough shift, and guess what? Now, Gary Gerald, I'm sorry.
Well, we just want to go back and clarify that situation. Castro Neves just clipped the air hose of his teammate in front of him who has the final pit here on the pit road. These pit boxes are 38 feet long. Contrast that to the 50-foot long boxes that the drivers were using 2 weeks ago at Twin Ring Motegi. So it's much more cramped, and that matter of a few inches cost Castro Neves, who's now dropped all the way to the back of this single file procession. So from a top 5 spot, he's now got tremendous amount of work to do, and great disappointment for him and his team.
Yeah, in fact, that 38-foot fact is a matter of contention among some of the drivers who would like to see some sort of minimum standard set. Now, in our first Toyota Spotlight, we want to take a look at the new leader of the race, Paul Tracy. Paul's no stranger to success here. He captured his first Nazareth victory back in 1994, of course, driving for Roger Penske. Then with a win in 97, and a grand total of 5 podium finishes, Tracy has proven his ability to control this track. Today, his pit crew proves that ability as they put Paul Tracy in the lead on the very first stop during the caution because of Max Pappas's spin. And that also keeps Paul Tracy as the leader in the Budweiser Hard Charger Award, which will be tracked throughout the season. So when we come back to green, there's the Budweiser Hard Charger Award. It will be Tracy, now followed by Montoya, Christian Fittipaldi, Jill DeFerrin, Kenny Breck, Roberto Moreno, Jimmy Vasser, Alex Tagliani, and Adrian Fernandez. Okay, take a look at this. Montoya ahead of Tracy as we show you the top 15 in the field. It happened on the restart just a few seconds ago. Montoya came down and charged on Paul Tracy. Sorry we didn't have it. We're going to show it to you, so don't worry about that. But there is a top 15 for you with Montoya as the leader on the 87th lap. This was the restart. Montoya almost totally lost it as the green came out, and then surged past Tracy at the start-finish line and took up the lead.
It was an awesome restart. The first restart they waved off. Tracy had gotten too big of a jump on. The second one, Montoya got right underneath his gearbox, slid the car all the way through 3 and 4, and beat him to the line. Green flag was out. It's a legal pass, and he goes off into the lead.
Yeah, but let's go back. That was a second attempt at restarting the race. On the first one, they said, the kart officials said that Tracy jumped the start, but if he's the pole sitter and he's the leader of the race, he's the leader of the race in this case, can't he just go when he wants?
Well, there you have it.
You're the race driver guy.
If it were my race, I'd go anytime I wanted to.
Jan Beekes.
We checked with Barry Green about the fuel on board for Paul Tracy because he made such a fast pit stop. Makes you wonder, did they fill it up with fuel? According to Barry Green, yes, in fact, they got all the fuel. And he did have some discussions with the kart officials after that restart to make sure that Montoya was legal in that pass.
Well, Montoya is the leader, Gary Gerald.
And Chip Ganassi, Chip the cheerleader, he was on the radio, said that was fantastic to Montoya. Well, we saw how fantastic it was, but then in a more serious vein, he also told Juan that the tires looked good, that the right front was in very good shape. So they're very pleased with the way that car is working, the setup, and obviously the kid is on track once again.
Gary, you've also been keeping track of Alex Tagliani, who has just moved into 7th place.
Yeah, they came in and they told him that they still had 7 gallons of fuel on board at lap 75, but they decided that they'd better take advantage of the yellow because the thinking up and down pit road is if you have to stop under green, you're going to lose 2 laps to the field. So they just couldn't take that gamble, even though he was getting tremendous mileage.
And if he had 7 gallons of fuel left, we were estimating they were going to get 2.2 to 2.3 miles per gallon. That puts him up in the 2.6, 2.7 mile per gallon range, which is phenomenal.
You watch Alex Tagliani, his teammate, Patrick Carpentier, is back in the saddle. He had 7 weeks out with a broken wrist. He showed me his wrist this morning. Boy, I'll tell you, it's a pretty large incision. In fact, he and Adrian Fernandez, who broke his wrist at Detroit last year, were comparing incisions.
And when I talked to Patrick earlier, he had ice on it after this morning's warm-up. He said in the last 14 days, he's been go-karting 7 of them. He started with a little 4-cycle, went to a 2-stroke 100, then a 125, ended up in a 250. And I said, yeah, but your wrist looks like it's still in pain. He said, well, driving a champ car is a little different than a go-kart. But he said he was confident that there wouldn't be too much wear and tear on it. Between this race and next week at Milwaukee, he thought that the recovery should be fine.
Jan Beekes.
We were talking about fuel and the 7 gallons that were on board some of the cars when they pitted. Well, we haven't seen a whole lot of passing on the racetrack, but there's been a lot of strategy up and down pit road. People who have not been able to pass have taken the option of leaning out the car and saving fuel, hoping that then they have a faster pit stop and they can pick up positions. For example, Adrian Fernandez said he could have gone all the way to lap 95 if they had not had the caution.
You've been riding on board with Jimmy Vasser. He just got around Luis Garcia Jr., who was able, of course, to get the car restarted after that last yellow. In fact, it's kind of a kick just to follow somebody like Vasser around here and ride with him lap after lap. Montoya is still the leader, followed by Paul Tracy, Christian Fittipaldi. Gil de Ferran is 4th. Kenny Breck is 5th. 6th is Roberto Moreno, then Alex Tagliani, Adrian Fernandez, Mauricio Guzman, and Patrick Carpentier round out the top 10. Again, due to a misconnection between the official kart scoring system and the television system, we're not able to put that pylon in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. It was something that we kind of dreaded when kart said that they were going to change part of the system. And we can assure you we'll do everything we can to get it working as soon as we can. Montoya the leader. Roberto Fontana just ahead of him. Fontana is 18th, obviously about to go another lap down. Let the field come through as you look for your guy.
Just watching Cristiano D'Amata and his buddy Tony Kanaan going at it. Remember, Cristiano's now a number of laps down, but still a racer. He's not going to give up any positions that he doesn't have to.
Cristiano had to make make that evasive maneuver on the start of the race when Dario Franchitti, who is the only car listed out right now, Dario Franchitti spun. Apparently the cold tires contributing to that. And D'Amato, who was running down off of the last turn on the inside of the course, thought it wiser to spin the car than try and chock the brakes and certainly not go to the right, which would have put him into the side of his teammate, Oriol Servia. Servia, on the other hand, now running in 12th place.
This is a very unusual oval. We haven't really talked about the track layout much. It's a little bit of a road course, a little bit of an oval. Here they come through turn 1, 185 miles an hour, 4 Gs. You saw the upshift from 5th to 6th. Now into turn 2, it's uphill through here. Minimum speed's 155 miles an hour. Once again, 4 Gs. Now downhill, coming down like a 4-story office building. They're on the brakes, usually downshift here. 185 miles an hour at entry, 140 at the minimum cornering speed, 3.6 Gs. Fastest point at the racetrack happens right here, just over 195 miles an hour.
Take you back up toward the front of the field. Paul Tracy and Christian Fittipaldi. There is Tracy, and then 2 slower cars, and then Fittipaldi. Bright yellow helmet, the Newman Haas Racing colors. Fittipaldi's got a problem from behind, too, because that's Gilles de Ferran in the red and white Penske car just behind. And de Ferran is able to stay in very close contact. So this is a battle for 3rd place, while at the same time Fittipaldi trying to close on 2nd place, Paul Tracy. Juan Montoya is still the leader, and he leads now by 2.6 seconds over the 2nd place, Paul Tracy, with 105 laps complete. Back at the Kart Nazareth 225. Don't forget, tomorrow they run the Indianapolis 500. Montoya, of course, will be starting that race and hoping to notch a victory there. There will be coverage on ABC Sports tomorrow. And then, of course, ESPN and ESPN2 will also be providing plenty of coverage of the 84th running of the Indy 500. We have just passed the halfway point, so if weather was going to be an issue, it is no longer an issue relative to the end of the race. If it begins a downpour right now, this race is into the record books and is official, though the sky has been clearing a bit, and it doesn't seem likely. As we show you the top 15 in the run here, the only pass at the lead occurring when Tracy got past Montoya in the pits, and as soon as they went green, Montoya grabbed the lead right back. Jimmy Vasser suddenly slows.
Oh, there's something wrong with the back of the car, whether he's got a cut tire or something broken in the rear suspension. That car's gone way loose.
Some shine on his left rear, but not sure what it is. We'll keep an eye on Vasser. Well, we've got another car in trouble. And this is big trouble. Roberto Fontana. Boy, right down in the middle of the track after catching a wall coming off at turn number 2. There he's moving around in the cockpit. That's a good sign. Boy, it comes right on top of Vasser's situation. Let's look at what happened to Jimmy Vasser, and we'll evaluate the situation with Montana. Vasser, Tagliani comes around him. Fernandez. What do you think, Parker?
Don't know, Paul.
Good call, Parker. Always insightful. I really like getting that kind of information.
It's a target car with a nice profile shot.
So a sudden slowing for Jimmy Vasser, and then immediately thereafter this problem with Norberto Fontana, one of the Toyota-powered cars. Jan Bikas.
Unfortunately for Patrick Carpentier, you come back to active duty, but what happened to your car?
Yeah, I don't know. We had a problem at the back. The car just slowed down after we changed tires and couldn't get around as fast as before. The chassis was good, but it just went down, and then it shut down 5 times, and it was almost like if I was hitting the brake, so I had to stop because the guy behind me was going to rear-end me.
All right, sorry you're out, but glad you're back to the series.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's good to see Patrick back. Now we're going to try to figure out what happened to Norberto Fontana. Well, I'd say he got up in that gray stuff. That's my incisive kind of non-analyst.
It's insightful analyzation there, Paul. And then you can see all the debris. We don't know if Jimmy had you know, we had the problem with Jimmy earlier. We just saw that Jimmy was working the wheel in the back of the car, was obviously trying to come around on him.
What this has done, of course, is close the pits, and unless it was going to be an absolute emergency, kept Jimmy from making any run into the pits. But now the pits open, and as you see, most of the field going to head in and onto the pit road. We start with Jan Vikas.
And Paul, they will not need very much fuel. And Paul Tracy will be the first one that comes to a stop because he's pitted near pit in. Here comes Montoya, but here comes Tracy. This should be really quick. It won't need much fuel. This will come down to how fast can you change tires. 6 seconds so far. 9 seconds left, Gary.
All right, we'll watch for him now as they go to work on Montoya, making the tire change, getting those precious few gallons of fuel. The revs low, he's gone, but Tracy's beaten him. Moreno's beaten him. Breck has beaten him. Trouble for Montoya getting out. He lost 3 spots at least.
Oh, Montoya is going to hate that because there is DeFerrin and Montoya lined up right behind Paul Tracy. Kenny Breck is there as well. And there, finally, we see Montoya come into view. So that stop very costly for Montoya, who locked the brakes up just before the speed limit line. We'll be back. Today's coverage on ESPN of the CART Nazareth 225 is being brought to you by Honda, proud sponsor of the 2000 FedEx Championship Series. Well, we're still under the caution here at Nazareth when Humberto Fontana's car caught the wall coming off of the second turn. I'm Paul Page with Parker Johnstone. Gary Gerald just reported that the best guess that they have on Jimmy Vasser's situation, where we suddenly saw him slowing and a lot of folks went past him, was that he just lifted as he came up behind a slower car, lost the momentum completely, and couldn't get it going again.
In this Toyota Spotlight, we're going to take a look at Juan Montoya's pit problem in Japan. Now keep your eye on the vent man as he releases the jack hose and gets wrapped around the boost control wire on the pop-off valve. As he pulls the hose loose, it knocks the wire off, and Montoya no longer has any boost. Here's the wires it sits on the pop-off valve. As you watch the replay, it was really a freak thing that cost Montoya the win in Japan. And they told us they've tried to repeat this exact same thing in the shop over and over and over again, and they couldn't make it happen. And that's racing. When it's your time, and when it isn't, it isn't.
Oh, I hate that expression. That's racing. Now they say it's welded, it's taped. They've got safety wires on it. That thing is covered with everything. Jan Vikas.
Tony Kanaan now is leading this race because he did not stop. So I checked with the crew to find out how big of a gamble is this. What they have to have now is they need to have a caution period in the next 45 laps. So it's not that big of a gamble because we know how tight the confines here are at Nazareth. So if you're not running well, don't stop and then hope for late yellow.
So they still circle under the yellow flag. Tony Kanaan followed by Jimmy Vasser, first and second place. During the last stop, this was the view that Ricardo Nault had as he changed Kenny Breck's right front. Paul Page and Parker Johnstone, the CART Nazareth 225, 124 laps are complete. And as they cross the line, it's the 125th, so just 100 to go. Tony Kanaan and Jimmy Vasser did not stop at the last round of pit stops. Now, that puts them in the lead of the race, but it also puts them in a fairly precarious position relative to how they're going to finish this race.
Well, everyone's going to have to make at least one more stop to make it to the end. So they're just hoping that a yellow comes out before they run out of fuel. They'll make their stop before anyone else, but track position is everything. If they come in first and go back out, everyone else comes in after them, they'll still be at the front of this race, and that's all they care about.
Team Cool Green had an incredible pit stop on that last round and got Paul Tracy 3 positions up, put him in actually in third now, but relative to the race on the track, it was an enormous jump. And Jill DeFerrin, Roberto Moreno, and Kenny Breck all were able to get out ahead of Juan Montoya.
Yeah, Moreno had a great stop. Once again, as you said, they're leading the pit stop challenge right now. They didn't put on fresh tires. So far, tire wear hasn't been a concern. Firestone's done a great job. When we left here 7 weeks ago, they had to dismount all 7 sets for every team, take them back, store those tires, come back, remount those tires, plus give them an additional set. The Firestone guys have just done a great job, and Moreno's team is hoping that tire wear won't be a problem, and that gave him track position in that last round of pit stops.
Oh, those wily guys at Newman Haas just refueled Michael as they get further down in this yellow. Don't forget, in just a week, the Champ cars head off to the Milwaukee Mile. We'll have coverage of qualifying, the morning warm-up, and the Miller Lite 225. The coverage comes on ABC Sports. Alec Tagliani is answering a black flag. They said that the car was smoking, Jan Bikas.
Yes, the CART officials said that this car is losing fluid. They argued and said, no, that's not the case. They're going to do a traditional pit stop here, and you can see at the back of the car that the stewards are looking it over very carefully to see if there are, in fact, some fluids leaking, and it appears as though that is the case. His day looks like it might be done. And an update on that, Jan, on the radio, Tagliani, when he was told that they were bringing him from smoking, he said, are they serious? Do they want to stop this race for a puff of smoke? Team said stay out. He said it was smoke from locking up his tires.
That's a good answer. The young man's quick on the radio.
So both of the players' Forsyth cars are now out of competition. It's a very special day for me. Normally I wouldn't do this kind of thing, but my daughter Marlo graduating with a Bachelor of Arts in Design for the Savannah College of Art and Design, even as we speak. Sorry I can't be there, sweetheart, but you know I love you.
Watch Cristiano D'Amato's crewman give him the umbrella. He and his teammate Oriol Servia have different color umbrellas, and that's how they've been marking the pit today. It's something unique, something we haven't seen before.
Looking down from the Honda Helicam, which circles over this track, and the long view down the downhill backstretch, doesn't look like it that much to the television camera looking from the outside, or for that matter, even if you're sitting in the grandstand. But to the driver, they say you come off at 2 and look downhill, and it is very impressive. Ready to go green once again. They will go green on the start. Whoa! Cold tires again? I would assume so. This time it involves Paul Tracy.
And we saw Jourdain in there.
And Montoya's up there too. Michel Jourdain Jr. appeared to be the start of the situation. We will look at it again. But boy, this is going to have an effect on the race.
You know, before I would have called that a Servia after Oriol had done it 2 races in a row, but now that everybody's getting on the act, you know, and it's not that cold outside. That's the thing. We see Jourdain Jr. loop it, coming onto the pit straight, bumps Paul Tracy. Looks Montoya into the back
of Moreno, yep. It looked like.
Everyone else just scrambling.
Oh, this is going to have a major impact on the outcome of this race. Tracy pitches it sideways. It doesn't look to me like it got anything critical on that hit. The real question is going to be over with Montoya, because he looked as if his nose really got poked into the back of Moreno's gearbox. Look at the damage there.
Yeah, you're right, Paul. It took out that right front wing. And the only concern I'd have with Tracy is Jourdain's right front, where it hit Paul's side pod, is right where the radiator is located. Is hopefully the pod isn't that big of a deal, but if it damaged the radiator, then that would put Paul Tracy out of the race.
Well, and the other question is Roberto Moreno, because that damage that you just saw as they get ready to change the whole nose and wing assembly, that came from the impact with the back end of Moreno's car, so you don't know what suspension parts or his tire might be damaged in there.
Yeah, you can see Jourdain just line it up coming off the last corner. And we can see just before we cut there. Oh, man, what a mess. That's going to leave a mark. Yeah. You know, you're going to see, we saw Montoya's crew guys trying to match the wing setting from his last change, but obviously he was scoring that right front tire. They'll have to make the tire change there, put on the new front wing. And as you said, we'll have to see what's happened to the back of Moreno's car.
So we will continue under the caution, and because of that, we can find out what Alex Tagliani's problem was, John.
Yes, we saw him get out of the car just before the action on the racetrack. I assume it was engine related. We saw fluid.
Yeah, I think we had a leak, and it's too bad because, I mean, we had problems in the pit stop in Japan, so we lost a race there, and this weekend everything was changed, and the Players Foresight team does a very good job in the pit, and we picked up a lot of position. We were running 6 because 2 guys were out of sequence, so I think it was pretty good, and we had a chance to finish in the top 5 this week, and so, you know, we'll catch them, you know, next round.
Unfortunately, both these cars are out now. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Gary?
We're in Montoya's pit. pit. Here he comes. We can see the damage at the right front on that wing, and it is extensive. Now his teammate Vassar made a stop, got fueled up. He exits. Juan sits here. Chip Ganassi oversees the operation. They're going to have to change the entire front nose assembly. That will take even more precious seconds, but again, they're still under the luxury of a yellow flag. They're remarkably quick. Only 4 bolts to go into place on top, 1 underneath. Ganassi hollers for him to get it down off the jacks, I believe. Still waiting to get that nose in place. The field hasn't come by, so they do a remarkable job to get him back out here without losing further time.
Oh, that was a beautiful piece of work. Has damaged Montoya's chances greatly, but still, you got to give the crew credit for that one as they change the nose. For the 55th year, USAC's National Midget Car Series takes to the track for the annual Budweiser Night Before the 500 Classic. Join them in some of the great coverage, and it's terrific racing. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of Go Network, go.com. Well, we're still under the caution flag. We're going to give you a rundown of the field with Tony Kanaan leading the field around right now. They did go green and then immediately went yellow. There was some question about how that occurred, but look at Tracy. Maybe now he recognizes a problem that they didn't know about before. Jan Beekes?
Well, they did not think that he had any damage. This may be a strategic move for Team Green and Paul Tracy, because Paul has said on the radio the car is not damaged, and in effect it appears as though they're only going to be going for fuel here just so they'll have enough fuel to get to the end of the race. They don't even bother checking out the car. About a 4-second pit stop. They have also been lobbying to see if they can get Paul back to where he had started, because they said the green had never come out. Why can't we take our position back on the racetrack? So far, CART does not agree.
Well, CART has, in fact, said that the green did come out. You just saw the car of Jimmy Vassar go by, and he is the other big story here, because as perhaps you noticed, when Montoya came in for the nose wing change, Vassar was already in the pits. That should give him, Parker, enough to make it to the end?
He's got to go 92 laps, but he and Paul Tracy have made the brilliant move, because everybody else will have to stop. These guys should make it to the end, resume track position at the front when everyone else has to pull in.
Tony Kanaan leads them back to the green. D'Amata makes a move back in the field. Keep an eye on Montoya. He's 11th back there. Kanaan, DeFerrin, Moreno, Kenny Breck, and Christian Fittipaldi, the front 5.
If this goes green to the end, we won't see the strategy play out now for quite some time. But watch how this unfolds. If Montoya can get by Vassar, which he's done, it's going to be Montoya, Vassar, and Paul Tracy come 225 laps completed at this race.
Vassar is back in 11th place. Paul Tracy is 13th. Gary Gerald?
Well, let's throw one more name into the potential mix of going the distance. That's Adrian Fernandez, who'd been getting 2.75 to 2.8 miles per gallon. They told me shortly before the yellow, if we get 10 more laps of yellow, we think we can get him there to the end without another stop. Right now, Adrian is in 7th place, and he could figure into that group along with this very small company of Jimmy Vassar, Paul Tracy, who've got fuel to go the distance.
Christian Fittipaldi works on Kenny Breck. The battle is for 4th. With Alex Tagliani out of the run, he's been leading in the rookie points battle. It's going to give Kenny Breck and that bright yellow shell car an opportunity now to move forward in the rookie points fight. There's Montoya as he now tries to get his way up through the field and lines up behind Cristiano D'Amato. On the restart of the race just a couple of laps ago, Montoya is making moves early. And a little bit of an advantage with his teammates sitting just ahead of him. Whoa. Goodbye. I got 3 of you. I'm gone. Quickest hands in the business. He's an amazing race driver. As Montoya tries to work his way up through this field, next position that he's actually going for is Michael Andretti, but he is separated from Michael by Cristiano D'Amato. Servia gets way high coming off the corner.
And I was just going to mention he had gotten by Servia. Servia, though, has done a great job. Started back in 17th position and has worked his way up now to 10th.
Credit has to go to Morris Nunn and his new team this year, because Tony Kanaan, their Mercedes engine, they run at the front of the field, followed by Gil DeFerrin for Penske Racing and Roberto Moreno for Patrick Racing. Gary Gerald.
Well, you can almost smell these computers humming down here as the engineers crank out information on what kind of mileage it'll take to get to lap 225 without another stop. Michael Andretti's been told if he gets 2.58 miles per gallon, he'll be all right. Kenny Breck has been told get 2.68 and you'll be okay. Let's go to Jan.
Adding one more name to the list, Mauricio Gugelmin. Their team now says they can make it to the end. So more people saving fuel, hoping to make it the distance.
Well, and it is somewhat logical to assume that you're going to see one more caution period. We're at the 147th lap right now. And you would think that the way it has gone thus far, and certainly the record here, is such that you're going to see one more caution, which should put all of those guys well within reach of the checkered flag.
What's going to play out is that Montoya, Vassar, and Tracy, however, can run significantly richer with more horsepower through the closing stages of this race than anyone else. Can they use traffic? Can they use the horsepower advantage, though, to get the passes done, to get to the front if everybody else is in complete fuel conservation mode? That's what's going to be interesting. Now, we saw earlier in the race, Montoya got bunched up and fell nearly a second and a half off his pace and couldn't make any headway through the lap cars in front of him once he had slowed down and got into the same rhythm as the cars in front of him. So it's going to be very interesting strategically, both from the pit lane side and also on the racetrack.
Richer, of course, means that they're using more fuel. More fuel means they make more power. More power means more acceleration and more speed, but it's a pyramid that they're sitting on the top of, trying to figure out how to get that fuel to get them to the end.
And you're talking the difference of just over 900 horsepower if they're running fuel full rich, all the way down to the mid 700s if they've got the thing leaned out. So 150 horsepower is a significant percentage of 900. Can make a big difference if you've got enough straightaway and enough opportunity to pass.
Second place, Gil DeFerrin. He, of course, searches for Roger Penske's 100th win, which has been a long time in coming. Not eminent today, but it is possible. Roberto Moreno drives for Pat Patrick, teammate to Adrian Fernandez.
You know, and Paul, you and I were talking about Moreno the other night. The fact that he doesn't get maybe as much attention as certainly he deserves because he does his job so efficiently, so professionally. We were trying to remember the last time he had an unforced error, and we couldn't think of one. And then I started polling other people in the paddock, and no one could remember a time that Roberto had made a mistake on his own. He just does things so well that he doesn't attract any attention, and he's driven absolutely brilliantly this year and is one of only two drivers now, he and Paul Tracy, to have completed every lap of the season, and that's what it takes to win the championship.
We're watching Kenny Breck. He runs fourth. But as we are, one more comment on Roberto Moreno. That's Fittipaldi closing up on Kenny Breck for position. I don't know that there's a driver in the paddock that enjoys racing as much as Roberto Moreno. He always has a big smile on his face. He loves everything about this sport, and he shows it.
And Paul, I think his team has been responding to that, because we were just talking with Kevin Diamond, who's the spokesman for Patrick Racing, and Roberto Moreno basically hasn't passed anybody on the racetrack. The positions he's gained are because of the work his team has done in the pits.
We've got a yellow, Gary, and it's Michel Jourdain Jr. Remember, he was caught up in that problem on the restart. They were able to keep him going. This is the caution that I suggested we may in fact have, but Michel Jourdain Jr. now is the cause of the fourth caution of the day. That turned around quick. Whoa.
You normally don't see that on the entry.
Oh,
now keep in mind they're lightly on the brakes there and downshifting as they go into turn 2. And obviously he screwed up on the downshifter, had a little too much rear brake proportioning, because normally you just don't see that sort of entry snap.
Michel Jourdain Jr. is okay. He's climbing out of the car. Here it is one more time. Ooh, duck. Baby's coming right at us.
Yeah, and see, once you've got him locked up, it just keeps on its original line. And he hit the wall a ton there.
That's Michel leaning up against the wall. It'll take a little while now to get this car and some of the debris back. 70 to go. You saw it. And this is an ideal time for the leader, Tony Kanaan, to come into the pits. And this will absolutely solidify the fact that he can go to the end of the race, but I think this yellow solidifies that fact for a good many people. Jan Bikas?
Yes, it does. It is the break that Tony Kanaan and Morris Nunn were hoping for. He is going to lose the lead when he makes the pit stop, but at least he's not going to lose the 2 laps that he would have if he had to pit under green. So it turns out that Morris Nunn made the right call, but he'll still have a long way to go when they come in here and fill it up. But like some of the other guys, he'll have plenty of fuel to try and get racy if you can out here at Nazareth. Gary?
And we were talking about the Patrick team a moment ago. We now have confirmation that Fernandez, they say, can go to lap 225, where the checkered is scheduled to fall without further problem. Roberto Moreno, it's still very close, but each one of these laps under yellow gets him closer to that goal. Now, the crew for Helio Castroneves had gone over the wall. Now they have retreated and come back to the Penske team. Gilles de Ferran's guys, and remember, he pitted back, I think it was around lap 117 or 118. He definitely was going to have to make a stop. They have not shown that they're going to go over the wall and service that car, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see him have to come in.
Well, the yellow that you predicted, Paul, now throws the fuel strategy question completely out. Now everyone can make it to the end. It's a question of exactly how hard they can run, but I don't think it's a problem.
We're going to look at that spin that put Michel Jourdain into the wall one more time. Listen to the hit, too. That's expensive.
It's never like it sounds in the movies. It's a sickening, expensive sound.
And what do you figure? $150,000?
If that got the engine, that could be well over $200,000, $300,000 range with the gearbox as well.
So simple and so quick. Christian Fittipaldi heads onto the pit road. 157 laps complete. Tony Kanaan, leader of the race. So first and fifth and others now head for the pit road. Jan Bikas.
Yes, Tony Kanaan is going to get 1 turn of front wing, and we understand that Christian Fittipaldi is going to go for fuel only. Now, there's not really a huge rush when you make this pit stop under caution. It's pretty much just change the tires, fill it up with fuel, and make sure you don't make any mistakes. Not like what you would see under green. There's the front wing that we talked about, and you can see it's not like on a normal pit stop. That was a 12.09 by my watch. Not a huge rush, and now they can make a run from the back.
Tony Kanaan, one of the great stories in the sport, last year won the U.S. 500 at Michigan. For a time, he was so poor that he had to sleep in the garage of his car owner, and they locked him in the garage every night. We'll be back with more from Nazareth. Welcome back to the Kart Nazareth 225, the Andretti hometown, Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Mario Andretti honored here as the Grand Marshal and seemed to be enjoying himself thoroughly in front of his hometown crowd. This race originally scheduled to run back in the first week of April, and it snowed out. Not a whole lot warmer here today. It was about 57 degrees when we arrived at the track. Temperatures dropped a little bit. That's contributed to some cold tire situations, which has created some very expensive damage on these cars. We're going to show you the top 12 in position. They are led now after the stops, after the incidents, by Gilles de Ferran. 100 for Penske? Well, maybe. Roberto Moreno is there, and now you're talking the Pat Patrick and Roger Penske rivalry, which goes back to the beginning of Kart. Kenny Breck sits in third place. Mauricio Guzman is fourth, and Adrian Fernandez is fifth. Now, don't forget to join ESPN in prime time as the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series heads to the Pacific Northwest for short track action in the Sears 200. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of Go Network, go.com. Well, Parker, all of those wonderful strategies that everybody figured out have pretty much gone in the trash can.
Pretty much, Paul. Now it's race to the checkered flag. Obviously, Tony Kanaan's got a little bit more fuel than everyone else, but you know, as we talked about during the break, it doesn't make any difference at this point. Passing here is difficult. Someone like Montoya that's made so many brilliant restarts today is going to be what it takes in order to work the traffic the best, and really until they start lapping the very tail end of this field, we probably won't see much passing other than on this first restart.
Well, up here looking over the start-finish line, we're making the assumption that all of these guys are in good fuel shape. Let's just check and make sure. Jan Bikas, what about second place Roberto Moreno?
Well, he is one person that is not sure yet. They know that his teammate Adrian Fernandez is good to go. They've actually told him he can turn the fuel up. But they still need some more yellow and some more fuel-saving tactics by Roberto Moreno to save and make it to the end. So they're not sure, and he's going to adjust his driving style accordingly, which means he won't be as racy as he'd like to be.
His teammate Adrian Fernandez currently runs in fifth place. De Ferran, Moreno, Breck, Guzman, Fernandez, the top five. We'll be back with more from Nazareth right after this. Back at the kart, Nazareth 225, Paul Page, Parker Johnstone, Gary Gerald, and Jan Beekes. We're ready to go green once again. DeFerrin will bring them back to the green flag. Roberto Moreno will be in second, but Gary Gerald, there's a question about fuel for DeFerrin.
Well, nobody's saying for sure. We're getting definites from a lot of teams that they're good to go the distance. Remember, DeFerrin pitted, I believe it was lap 118. That means he would have to go 107 laps to get to the checkered flag on this load of fuel. The yellow is obviously helping him a whole bunch, but there still seems to be some question as to whether or not he can get good enough mileage to get to the end.
The Patrick Racing Team, as they go green, has already indicated that this yellow period has helped Roberto Moreno, and they should be able to race. The question will be Kenny Breck. He sits there in third place. Back to green flag racing on the 166th lap. Boy, the front three just disappeared from the rest of the field. Dale DeFerrin, the leader. Almost like there was a stumble in the field back about Mauricio Guzman.
Big crash in front of me, Paul.
Yep, big crash going into one. Mark Blundell and Elio Castroneves, it appears to be.
It is Castroneves.
Is the other car?
Yeah, it's Mark Blundell and Castroneves.
Yeah. That's in turn one. So now if there were any question at all for fuel for anybody, that's gone. Is Elio Castroneves okay?
They're both conscious.
Already there.
We saw them both moving. I saw Castroneves pushing some of the bodywork out of the cockpit. We could see from the onboard of Blundell that his hands were moving on the steering wheel.
Boy, that did an enormous amount of damage to the right side of Penske's Reynard there for Elio Castroneves.
Oh, that's just a huge hit.
That's a massive impact. Castroneves catches the wall about 4 different times as it comes to a stop. Fortunately, most of it with the right side, but you hope that all the energy absorption isn't gone away. There's Castroneves, and he seems to be fully alert, not very happy. Oh, limping just, well, is that a limp or just frustration?
You forget sometimes how fast these cars are going until you see an accident like that. TV slows everything down. The drivers, the fans, crews get used to see them going by at 185 miles an hour. And then you see an accident like that and watch the pieces fly off the car, and you have a much better appreciation for the speed and the potential danger of driving these cars at those kinds of speeds around a 1 mile oval.
Parker, there's another element of that you can add, is sometimes we take for granted all that energy, but the noise with that crash, even over our noise cancellation headsets with the program on in our ears, you could hear the huge boom that was right out here not more than 40 yards from where we are at the Penske pit when the initial contact went into the wall.
You know, I was just thinking exactly the same thing. I could hear it up in the booth, which has to be a good quarter mile away. They're still working on Mark Blundell. And let me tell you, things like that tire moving off down the course, it still is carrying a tremendous amount of energy. Kart safety team, that's Dr. Terry Trammell on the left. He's working on him. And Gary, you have Elio.
Yes, indeed. A quick word before you get back to the safety center. You know what happened, and more importantly, how are you feeling right now?
I'm fine. I thought that he would give me space because I already have a half a car, and when he closing in, we have no way to go. So I try just to not hit him and just touching to make sure that nobody's spinning. But as soon as I touch the grass, I spin and hit him as well. So it's a shame.
Well, we're happy that you're okay, because that was a huge impact, and we wish you better fortune, obviously.
Thank you.
Look at it from Mark Blundell's point of view. Keep an eye on his hands there. That's where he got hit.
And I tell you, that's the mark of an experienced driver. You see him pull his hands away just before he hit the wall. If he would have kept his thumbs wrapped around the wheel, his hands could have easily broken or dislocated fingers and his wrists. Very, very smart move there by Mark Blundell just before the contact. Okay, watch his hands right here. Watch him pull away just before contact. And I tell you, when you're traveling at that kind of speed at almost 300 feet a second, you have just tenths or even hundredths of a second to make that sort of judgment and reaction. Brilliant by Mark Blundell.
Well, it appears that Mark is assisting his rescuers there as they try to get the collar around his neck. Remember, he was injured in a practice test at St. Louis last year that kept him out for some time. Let's hope that that hasn't been aggravated in this accident. Well, the kart safety team has Mark Blundell up and out of the car, though they have him on a backboard and still haven't moved him away from the car, though they're starting to do that right now. We are still under caution. 172 laps are complete with Gil DeFerrin as the leader, followed by Moreno, Breck, Guzman, and Fernandez. Here's a replay of the situation.
One of the things I wanted to point out, Paul, you could see the rear wing of Castroneves' car go up in the air, lots of debris. I had the opportunity to walk around the circuit for a few hours yesterday, and the folks here at Nazareth have done a fantastic job reinforcing this concrete wall. They've got some of the best catch fencing of any of the circuits that the kart cars run on. And as you saw that wing go up, the thing that kept it from going up any higher and endangering the crowd was this great fence that they built that comes up and over the competitors.
You saw that one tire go bouncing up and over, and now it runs just ahead of Mark Blundell's car. And, you know, I've seen in racing, though not in the champ cars, I saw a pit crew member once saw a tire rolling that looked fairly slow down the pit. And he just reached out with his foot to kick it so it wouldn't go any further down the pits. Broke his leg just like that. There's a lot of kinetic energy in there. There's all that fencing you were talking about. You can see where they've added the extensions.
And that's the very area where that wing went up and got trapped and came back to the race surface.
Well, there he is, Roger Penske. Is he now possibly ready to grasp his 100th win? His pit's right down at pit exit, and he certainly has to be considering that, though for the rest of us who are superstitious, it may be just a little early to mention that. About 50 laps to go. For the kart, Nazareth 225 stopped again, really slowed down by the caution. They should be going back to green shortly. Coverage of the kart Nazareth 225 on ESPN has been brought to you by Firestone, America's tire since 1900, and by FedEx, proud sponsor of the FedEx Championship Series. Well, still under the caution, nothing has changed. No one's been into the pits. They're just waiting for what is a rather lengthy cleanup. But now we do get a change. The field moving down onto the pit road, but that's because here they have a very innovative design. In fact, Rick Mears created this concept. Rick's still working as a driver consultant for Roger Penske. He has this extra road that you see lower right-hand corner of the screen that allows a slower car when warming up to use that area, but also in a situation like this where the incident is actually just off of the exit of turn 1, so they now can use this other roadway and stay completely away from the cleanup, and so the cleanup can go faster. A number of other tracks have replicated that since Rick Mears first thought it up. Jan Bigas?
Well, Paul, you know, when you take the inside road around there, also remember that you're doing a smaller lap distance.
I knew you'd catch that.
So the idea is if you're trying to save fuel, you are given fuel for the distance of the race lap. You go to the inside, you have a shorter distance, and then you can save even more because you're not going as far.
Well, and Jan, they were saying that Roberto Moreno and Kenny Breck, second and third behind DeFerrin, were running fairly slow, and the officials finally had to push them forward.
Yeah, that's a case where, you know they need to save fuel, so they're going to go as slow as they possibly can and lean it out and put it in the highest gear they can without the thing starting to chug a lug. And that's what you do if you want to have some fuel for the end here with not that many laps to go.
And that's what they do. They go to full lean up to 6th gear. It takes the mileage up between 7, 8, sometimes 9 miles per gallon. And they're going to extend that advantage for as long as they can.
And for all of those who are rather precise about their racing, yes, laps on this road, even though it's shorter, do count. The race is 225 laps. The distance, well. So after 177 laps, DeFerrin is our leader. Moreno and Breck just behind him. Now, our Toyota Spotlight is going to focus on some of the incidents that we have had during this day. It starts with a situation with Michel Jourdain Jr. Big smack into the wall. Then this was that restart problem. Again, the key feature was Michel, but Montoya, Paul Tracy, they got involved. Then here is Mark Blundell's crash just now. And That is why we are under the full course caution, the caution here on the oval at Nazareth. So giving you the full field summary with DeFerrin as the leader of the race. And because he is the leader, there is the possibility that Roger Penske will score his 100th win here today. Gary Gerould, do you dare even talk to the man?
Well, I don't know if he's superstitious or not, but Roger, we're not going to worry about superstition. You're on the threshold here of an opportunity to get that long-awaited 100th career victory. What are your concerns now as you get ready to go green with less than 50 laps to go?
Well, of course, you know, fuel is an issue here because we only made one stop. I'm also concerned about the trash here on the track. We get some pickup on a tire and have an issue there. But, you know, basically, Gil's run a great race. We've got to run the last 50 laps to stay out of trouble, and we'll hopefully see in victory lane.
How gratifying is it to see, after all the changes you made in the offseason, this program coming back to prominence?
Well, I think the main thing is that we've showed that we are competitive. We've made some changes this year, which certainly made a big difference in the team. Their guys are pulling together. I'm glad that Elio's okay here, but got to wait and see what happens.
I know. They're anxious down here, obviously. Let's check in the Patrick pit with Jan.
Yes, we've talked about Penske. We've talked about Patrick. Just like the days of old, two team owners battling. Will it be a day that Penske get his 100th, or can you upset him?
I'm surprised that Penske's ahead of me. How's that sound?
Is Moreno okay on fuel?
Yeah, we're fine, and I'm happy for Roger. I really am. I'm sad about what just happened to Helio, because Helio's a great race car driver and a former Indy Lights champion, as you well know. I really may see a good shootout here.
All right, thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
In review, Helio Castroneves is okay. He went to the medical center for a checkup. We're still waiting for the official report from the CART officials on Mark Blundell, though he was talking and aiding his rescuers. They took him out of the car and put him on a backboard and have taken him over to the medical center as well. And we'll give you that update just as soon as CART gives it to us. We also hope we'll be going green here very shortly. Welcome back to Nazareth, Pennsylvania, where they're still trying to get this track totally cleaned up after the incident involving Mark Blundell and Helio Castroneves. Just coming off of the first turn. 182 laps have been scored, 225 the scheduled distance. And barring another caution, we will take you to the finish. In fact, beyond the end of the race, commercial free now. We've been trying to set it up to be able to do that. Now, if there's another caution period, all bets are off, but we'll do the best we can. There are the standings. Top six: DeFerrin, Moreno, Breck, Guzman, and Fernandez. And in 1 week, we will be at the Milwaukee Mile, one of my favorite racetracks in the world, for the Miller Lite 225. We'll have all the pregame coverage on ESPN2, and then the race itself comes up on ABC Sports. So make sure you join us for the Miller Lite 225. Well, here at Nazareth, what was trying to be a very tactical race, a very strategic race, has now turned out to be pretty much a good old-fashioned A-main as we're going to go to the end, because fuel is good on everybody. They're making fuel now under these caution periods. We've seen the game with Moreno and Kenny Breck as they lag back just a little bit. We know that Montoya sits back in 7th place, and he's been pretty good at moving up on the restarts. We're going to give a special view of him. There's Adrian Fernandez as he's lagging back a little bit back in the back of the field, and you can look for the car that you're cheering for as they come through. CART FedEx Championship Series, there is the defending champion, car number 1, which the 1, of course, denotes the defending champion. And there is the leader as he comes through, Gil DeFerrin, followed by the rest of the field. Gary Gerould?
Well, Gil DeFerrin is very concerned about the amount of debris that's still out on the racetrack, particularly up close to the wall. They've got the blowers and the brushes and all kinds of stuff out here, and that is being echoed by Roberto Moreno, who said the track is still too dirty, in his words, and the laps continue to tick by, and these drivers are very concerned because they want to be able to get the grip that they need when that thing goes green again.
Well, and looking out and around the track, the last of the safety trucks seems to be moving down as if they might be getting ready to go back position. They're taking a last look at the turn 2 area. They're taking a pretty good look at it. You can see there is a great deal of oil dry up against the wall. Used to suck up all the oil and other fluids that come from the car as they do hit the wall. Jan Bikas?
Hey, Paul, you don't think that possibly a driver who was trying to save fuel might say that, do you?
That's exactly what I was thinking, Jan. I was going to mention that I'd say there's debris everywhere around the track, and they got to spend at least another 5 to 10 laps picking it up.
Hey, come on, guys. Now, how much fuel can you save, for crying out loud? They've had enough time here to save, I would think, an afternoon's drive in the Lehigh Valley.
They got a refinery going down there. Speaking of that, by the way, remember, it is methanol. It's not a petroleum distillate, but actually comes off of corn cobs that powers these champ cars. Here are the point standings after the first 4 races. It looks like Roberto Moreno is just about to jump into the lead of the points fight if he can stay where he is, or better yet, if he can get up and take the lead away from Gil de Ferran. Jimmy Vasser also stands to make a good move. He's currently in 9th. Paul Tracy's sitting back in 12th. Gary Gerald?
Well, it's ironic that you mentioned that championship scenario, because there was a radio conversation just a few moments ago from the Team Cool Green pit to Paul Tracy telling him 40 laps to go. Just get as many points as you can. The championship is not lost. Remember, this is only round 5 out of 20.
And here is some good news. CART is reporting that Mark Blundell will be released momentarily. Never unconscious. He has some bruises to the upper back. But other than that, they seem to think that he is okay, and they're going to release him very, very quickly from the CART Medical Center. All right, we're going to put Montoya up in that box in the upper right-hand corner and watch him as we're ready to go to a restart. Gil de Ferran leads, then Moreno. Breck comes inside Moreno. Lags back now, the green comes out. Breck tries to make a move on Moreno. Oof. Montoya works on Michael Andretti.
Why we never...
Whoa, doesn't work on him, just blows him away down the inside. Back at the front, de Ferran begins to pull away just a bit.
Goes right by Fernandez, no problem.
And now he is up, beginning to challenge in that fight at the front. What a great set of moves for Montoya. On the first lap coming back, he's able to move up to 5th place.
And he had a huge head of steam coming up behind Mauricio Gugelmin. I think everyone's a little more cautious on the restart with cold tires, except for Juan Montoya. I think the guy just stands on it and deals with whatever the chassis gives him.
To add to his woes, Paul Tracy is about to get the black flag. It'll be a drive-through penalty because he passed the car before the green flag. Montoya is flying. De Ferran has a little over half a second on second place Moreno. Front of the field is very tight. This is the fight for 4th. Gugelmin and Montoya.
And you see that his advantage has been neutralized a little bit. Now that Mauricio's got temperature in his tires, he's been able to stay out in front of him. But those first few laps on that restart, Montoya is just that much closer to the edge and willing to take the risks that the other drivers in front of him weren't willing to take.
Paul Tracy at this moment answers the flag for the drive-through penalty. That will drop him well down in the order. As Montoya works Gugelmin, Gugelmin closes on Kenny Breck and Roberto Moreno. And that takes him up through 2nd place. So very shortly here, this is going to be a 4-way battle for 2nd. De Ferran has stretched out his lead by 2 tenths, now running 9 tenths ahead of the rest of the field. Just get a glimpse of him there. There he is.
You can see Moreno using every inch of the road right out to the wall at the exit of turn 2 there.
Moreno, what about Montoya? He just put a left side down in the grass.
Mauricio Gugelmin having one of the best races he's had so far this year. Pac West struggling. Had his best qualifying at Motegi in last race in 7th. Here he is running in 4th. Doing a very respectable job.
Watch Montoya here as they come into the corner. Gugelmin turns in. Now look at the left side of Montoya's car. Oh.
And there's a pretty good lip off the inside of the asphalt down onto that grass apron. You've got to be very careful of hooking the inside edge of the tires as you do that.
De Ferran runs alone 30 laps to the end of this run. But on this track, just a tick under a mile long, the laps just absolutely fly by.
He's been pulling out a couple tenths of a second a lap over Moreno and the rest of the group. 1.6 second lead right now.
So a big extension the last time around. He was 9/10 ahead the lap before. Now he's kind of maintained that interval at 1.6 ahead. Looking back now for Moreno, who is separated a bit from Breck. Guzman, in the meantime, is inching up on Kenny Breck, with Montoya still working him. Montoya's equalized behind Guzman. Can't seem to catch him. But Fernandez is inching forward on Montoya. And right behind Fernandez is the ever-present Michael Andretti.
Everyone running now in the 21-second bracket range, about 160 miles an hour, with the exception of DeFerrin, who's down to 20.7, so clear 3 to 4 tenths quicker than anyone else.
Now here comes Montoya. Takes a look again at Mauricio Guzman. Montoya is giving that car a ride.
And at the front, DeFerrin's now 2.7 seconds ahead of Moreno and the rest of the pack.
25 laps to go now. Parker, in a race driver's mind, here is Montoya. Will tomorrow start as a rookie at the front of the Indianapolis 500. Does that ride on his mind here at all now, that maybe I got to be a little more careful? I don't want to do anything that keeps me out of that.
I don't think Montoya's ever been careful a day on a racetrack. No, I think for one, all he's thinking about is winning this race. That race will start the moment the checkered flag comes out here at Nazareth.
Montoya has not had a great year. His best finish thus far this year has been 7th, where at this time last year he took over the points lead and went on to his first championship in his rookie year. Now looking down from above, that's Breck down the lower right-hand corner, then Guzman, and then Montoya. This gives you a great view of the interval, how it's working. Also gives you a lot of information about what section of the course somebody's working better in. Oh, now slower traffic becomes a factor. Guzman comes up on Kenny Breck. Montoya decides to stay wide here. Guzman tries to get Breck. Guzman inside alongside Breck. They come off the corner too wide. Now they're too wide with Adrian Fernandez. Adrian is trying to get Montoya. He doesn't. So Fernandez just jumps inside that one. Now he gets Kenny Breck. Whoa, Adrian Fernandez just comes out of nowhere. Passes 2 cars, Breck and Montoya, in the space of a half a lap.
You know, I think I've seen 2 cars interlock wheels like we saw there since the Schumachers did it in the F1 race just a few races ago. All the way through turn 2, they just weren't side by side, but had their wheels interlocked.
But that's always kind of been the key here, is how can I use the traffic ahead? And if I can, I may use it to great advantage.
And Fernandez, who was so patient just a few laps ago, let Montoya go by, really didn't fight, waited for the opportunity, carried his momentum past Breck and Montoya. Great piece of driving there.
Montoya trying to come back on Kenny Breck on the backstretch. This is where Montoya set him up now. He's not really in a position there, but he is closing. Want to take you back to the maneuver that took Adrian Fernandez forward by 2 positions. Breck was trying to battle with Guzman on the inside. Montoya moved high. Now look at Adrian Fernandez. Past Montoya and then past Breck. Oh, that was a sweet move. We come back to live action. Nothing has changed. Montoya still works on Kenny Breck. Gil DeFerrin is still our leader. Roberto Moreno is a full 3 seconds back from the leader of the race. Moreno runs in 2nd place. There's Jill DeFerrin. 15 laps away from Roger Penske's 100th win.
14 to go. Garcia ahead of you. Garcia ahead of you. 14 to go. +5. +5. Nice and smooth.
Rogers talking to DeFerrin.
And remember also, Paul, that this would be the first oval track victory for Gilles DeFerrin if he can hang on in these final 14 laps. So another milestone of sorts.
Make it the 59th oval track victory for the Penske organization. And if you're going to do it for Roger, I mean, what a great place to do it. So close to where their shop is in Reading, Pennsylvania.
He's now got 5.9 seconds. So watch the battle between Moreno and Mauricio Gugelmin and Adrian Fernandez. You know, if memory serves me correctly, Paul, this would be Mauricio's best finish since his win at Vancouver.
Look at this, as Gugelmin really working hard on Roberto Moreno. Gary, update on Moreno?
Yeah, possible low-pressure tire situation for Moreno, and we saw Christian Fittipaldi pull off the pace in turn 1. I think he's headed for the pits with possibly a deflated tire.
Christian Fittipaldi is, in fact, on the pit road. 214 laps complete. We're coming up on 10 to go now.
As I was saying,
Gugelmin's got him, and Moreno goes high, goes into the wall. Yellow comes out. So that was a prediction, really, from Gary Gerould. They knew there was something wrong with this tire. Really, whoa. The tire comes bouncing past. Roberto Moreno appears to be okay. This man who has completed every lap this year to this point, and who is so consistent and so good and seldom makes a mistake. And now you have to consider that this problem is probably a result of that tire that they were worried about. Look how terribly angry Roberto Moreno is with this whole situation. He knows he's in trouble.
You know, Paul, he was just wide up in the gray as Mauricio went down the inside of him there going into the kink, and I don't know. I mean, we don't know if there was a deflating tire. We'd have to see the tire pressure telemetry data. But it looked like he got up in the gray, and the car just walked itself up into the fence.
But the way it got up there certainly would support the possibility of a deflating tire.
Well, it could be.
And there's the other tire. All right, Roberto Moreno will walk back to the car. I said we'd stay commercial free if we stayed green. We haven't. We're going to have to send you away for just a few moments while we try to regroup here, find out what happened to Roberto Moreno, and see if Gilles DeFerrin can win 100 for Penske. Back at Nazareth, our Toyota Spotlight looks at the tremendous career of Roger Penske, looking at a potential 100th win. You consider his 10 wins at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with drivers like Donahue and Mears and Fittipaldi. Bobby Unser was there, so was Al. And Rick Mears finally retires to become a driver coach. But Roger Penske, with so many terrific memories, will he add to them today and score 100? 217 laps are complete. At Gateway in 1997, Paul Tracy scored the 99th win. They wait now to see if this is going to be 100.
And there hasn't been a team that has undergone such changes as Roger Penske's team. New chassis, new engines, new tires, all new drivers. And look at the success they've had so far this year. Tremendous qualifying and race results. Not like the dominance of 1994, certainly, but this series has changed and is so competitive that they have gone from struggling the last few years to now being once again one of the dominant forces in kart racing.
A lot of Penske detractors, but I'll tell you something. I've always seen him as a class act. He throws the money at it, but he knows how to win, and he can win graciously. Well, Roberto Moreno's car, Pat Patrick's car, off of the racetrack now, hoping that they're going to get green. This is Cristiano D'Amata's view as Moreno went wide to the right and took the wall and took it very hard. Jan Vigas?
Yes, and thankfully Roberto is okay. We heard some radio reports about a tire going down. Did that have something to do with this?
Well, we're trying to hang on there. It was only 12 laps to go, so tire was going down slowly, so it was okay. But I came out of turn 3 slower than normal. Mauricio got underneath of me, and he went for it, so he took me off the line, and then there's nothing else I could do. It was very dusty out there, and him being very pointy into it. When I backed off, it was nothing I can do, basically. I guess it had to come to an end. I'll always finishing races, but I'm very, very pleased with the Vision Patrick team today. We did up to then we had a great job done, good pit stops, good strategy. Unfortunately, a flat tire started to go down, so we had to try to gamble a little bit, otherwise we would finish at the back of the grid anyhow.
Well, like they say, unfortunately, it's not over till it's over. Glad you're okay.
Yes, indeed.
So Marino's perfect record of laps this year ends here. Paul Tracy, who is still on the course, may become, or will become, assuming he gets to the end of this race, the only driver to complete every lap race this season. And fortunately, he moves back up. He's in 10th place right now, and that's going to help him tremendously in the point standing. Jimmy Vasser, though, is 7th place, and that will help Jimmy in points as well. We'll calculate that all out for you. So now, within the final 5 laps of the end of the race, but they have the course cleared, and we should be able to see green fairly quickly. They're rushing back to get on station. A couple of replays for you. First of all, we're going to show you from Cristiano D'Amata. And then we have a view from Jimmy Vasser. Same incident. He gets there a little bit later. By that time, Moreno all the way down on the inside.
You could see D'Amata, as soon as he lifted, how the back of the car started to move around. In fact, that's what we had seen earlier with Jimmy Vasser when he got pinched off, had the lift, and had that oversteer tank slapping situation happen. We want to really keep our eye on Juan Montoya on this restart, because remember, he's taken such great advantage of other drivers on this restart. Watch for his moves now on Bracken Fernandez.
Another thing to remember, there are 2 cars that are not on the lead lap separating De Ferran from Mauricio Guzman. So Guzman will have to move quickly. Hopefully the crews have talked to those 2 cars ahead of him and convince them to move out of the way when we go green. We'll see. They're ready to go. Green flag racing again. Green flag comes out. Final lap. So the car Nazareth 225. Oh, they're all bottled up as they're trying to get around the slower cars. Guzman stays in contact. Breck gets caught back in the field. Fernandez caught as well. Montoya is right there.
That was just a matter of which way do you go. Kenny chose correctly. Now Montoya is bottled up behind Fernandez and Tarso Marquez. They both get by. Michael Andretti all over the back of that group.
The battle is for the lead. Mauricio Guzman working on Gil De Ferran.
As I started to say earlier, this would be Mauricio's best finish since Vancouver of 1997, and he's looking extremely strong.
De Ferran inches away, 2 laps to go. Guzman trying to catch him. Breck finally clear of traffic in 3rd place.
Plus 0.5, last lap.
A little under a mile to go. Gil De Ferran works on
plus 0.5
on the backstretch. 100 coming from Roger Penske. Guzman can't make this last run.
Right, good job, Gil.
And Roger Penske with Gil De Ferran at the wheel takes win number 100. Congratulations to Gil De Ferran, and congratulations to Roger Penske. Jan Beekes.
And Roger, you have done it. Your 100th victory. Was there a time when you thought maybe this wasn't going to come?
Well, I guess that you never know with all the accidents, and you might pick something up and tired, but it's just great to do it here in Pennsylvania where Penske Racing has started, and Jill's done an outstanding job, but the whole team, I can't tell you how happy I am. I guess I got that one off our back now. We got to think about the future, but unbelievable.
A lot of huge changes for you this year, chassis, engine, and drivers, just so you could show your commitment. What does this 100th mean to you personally here at your home track?
Well, I think it's not just for me personally. It's, you know, for all of our race team and all of our 30,000 employees around the country, because they've been rooting for us. They've hung with us over the last couple of years, and I saw Al get his victory over there in Indy, and I said, boy, I better get mine quick because maybe we're in the right spots together, and I wish him good luck tomorrow at Indianapolis.
Congratulations.
Thanks a million.
So Roger Penske celebrates his 100th victory. Gilles de Ferran has already made the turn in down by the victory circle as the team runs up the way to congratulate their new champion. 5 races now. We said at starting it was 4 races, 4 different winners. It's now 5 and 5 different winners as Gilles de Ferran has taken the win. Gary?
Gilles de Ferran comes out. Here comes the crew. Gilles, pop that helmet off, and then let's talk about all the firsts, because what a memorable day. The first oval win for this man, the 100th win for Roger Penske, the first win with the restructured team, and Gilles de Ferran at the wheel after a devastating crash took his teammate Castroneves out. The smile tells us so much. What are your feelings here on all the accomplishments when you consider the grand history of Penske Racing in this Marlboro team?
I tell you, Gary, you have no idea how good this feels. You know, I mean, I got to thank the whole team. I got to thank Marlboro, and especially Roger for putting all this together. I mean, I got to... It's tight in here. You have no idea how happy I am.
How concerned were you about the fuel, and how much did all the yellow flags help you get to the end without a final stop?
I mean, they obviously helped everybody, you know. I mean, it was going to be tight on fuel. But, you know, Roger got me posted, and he has this amazing way to calm me down and keep everything under control. So it's a great day. It's a great day.
Did the restarts concern you at all with the pressure? Because there were so many fast guys back there who wanted to get a chance to challenge.
Nah, the car was really good all day, Gary. I mean, I was good in traffic, good on restarts. I was just going. To be honest, it was one of those days where everything seems to come easy for you. And it's just amazing.
A special day. Enjoy it.
Very special. Thank you.
Yeah, those 100 hats have sat in the box for over 2 years. Finally, they get to use them as Roger Penske wins with Gilles de Ferran. You saw Matt Johnson. He came in and gave Gilles a giant hug, the crew chief, for that car. So it's de Ferran, Gujram, and Breck. We'll give you the order of the rundown. Kenny Breck finally gets onto the podium. Montoya finishes up in 4th. That's his best finish of the year. And Chip Ganassi congratulates Roger. They're the unofficial results at the end of the run here at Nazareth. Our final Toyota Spotlight goes back to take a look at the action here today that resulted in de Ferran's win and Roger Penske's 100. It was an interesting day at Nazareth. And of course, in just a week, we'll see you at the Milwaukee Mile as the Kart FedEx Series continues. Coming up next, Legends of the Brickyard, the year 1982. And the best wishes to Juan Montoya and Jimmy Vasser as they head to Indy. This has been a presentation of ESPN Worldwide Leader in Sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com.